Hello, my friends. This is episode 275 of Stand Up. Joining me today, Dr. Christina Greer of Fordham University, comedian and cultural commentator Christian Finnegan, and my mom and dad who've been vaccinated. I'm Pete Dominick. Time to stand up with me right now. Hey guys, thank you very much for listening to the podcast, for pressing play, for being a part of this community, the stand-up community. If you're not a paid subscriber, we would love to have you join us and have all of the access to the Discord platform and our Hangouts and connecting with each other. So much to gain from being a member of our community. Lots that I want to talk about and play for you here at the top of the show. As always, I'm in a great mood myself. My daughter turned 16 today. We had a great dinner together. Celebrated her and 16. I wrote a really nice letter. I got great ideas from listeners as to what to do. I ended up writing her a letter that treated having a license and all the freedom that comes with it like a metaphor, like on the road of life and so on. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. She really liked it. And, it's hard because this is one of those times. It's definitely a transition for an American young person to get their driver's license, because then you don't have that time being there in the car with them. I'll never forget, years ago, I was on the radio and I was talking about how annoying it was to have to drive them all over the place. And a nice older listener, older father, someone whose kids had grown up, sent me a very thoughtful long email saying how important and precious that time that you have with them in the car is, and what he wouldn't give to go back to that time. And from that point on, I certainly never complained. More importantly, I never took a moment for granted when I was driving them around. So that's advice given to me by an older dad, and it's advice I'll give to all you guys who have younger kids. Being with your kids is always a gift. It's always precious, and you never want to look back and say, oh, I missed that opportunity. So make that time. And so, yeah, Ava's birthday, and my parents got vaccinated. We talk all about that because they joined me in a moment here, a couple minutes. Very excited about that. Had a hilarious conversation with them. It got absurd and crazy, but we had a lot of laughs, and I'm excited for you to hear that. People always love when my parents are on the show. And Donald Trump is not president. The first full day where Donald Trump wasn't president, and lots of people talking about how that is making them feel. I'm here for all of that. And at the end of last week, today it's Friday, a week ago today, I realized and mentioned that the show really had been dominated by a lot of dudes in terms of guests on the show, and that I'd try to be more cognizant of it, and that I would try this week to have mostly women. And I completed that task and mission, I'm proud to say. I like gender diversity. I like ethnic diversity. I like cultural diversity. You name it. I love it. And of course, I love a lot of the white guys that joined me, and I got a whole lot of them. But I was pretty happy with this week, and I highly recommend you go back and listen to anything that you missed. On Monday, the two ladies from Gaslit Nation, Andrea Chalupa and Sarah Kendzior, joined me. It's probably one of the most listened to episodes of the history of the podcast. Then on Tuesday, I had lawyer Midwin Charles and public health expert Dr. Siri Along. On Wednesday, New York Times Liz Brunig and Pam Keith joined me, along with her friend Mari Sally, who I talked to for the first time. And then yesterday, it was Maura Quint and Dr. Ruth Ben-Ghiat, as well as over 80 stand-up subscribers. And, of course, today I've got Dr. Christine Greer. And the only guy I booked was Christian Finnegan, who joins me every Friday. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. And I'll work hard to continue that. And I also want your advice on how you think the show should evolve with a new president and with so much change underway with the vaccinations programs underway all over the country. How do you think the show should change, if it should? How do you think it should evolve? I want it to keep changing and evolving, and I would always love to hear from you. standupwithpete@gmail.com. If you're a listener, you're invested, and I love to hear from you. That's why I like to call it our show. So pop me an email. Let me know who you want me to talk to, how you want me to talk to them. Maybe we can have some more debates, some more panels, all kinds of different ideas. I'm wide open to it. All right, now it's time to hit the news. I call this The Last 24, in case you missed anything in the last 24 hours. And this is a great news segment, I think, to wake up to, give you a whole bunch of information as well. It's sound clips, things that are in the public's interest and in your interest, as well as my pithy commentary around it. All right, let's start in Washington, where the new president, Joe Biden, sought to lower expectations in terms of what we're about to see and be honest and transparent with the American public about what is to come. The worst of COVID, here he is.
For the past year, we couldn't rely on the federal government to act with the urgency and focus and coordination we needed. And we have seen the tragic cost of that failure. Let me be very clear. Things are going to continue to get worse before they get better. The memorial we held 2 nights ago will not be our last one, unfortunately. The death toll will likely top 500,000 next month. The cases will continue to mount. We didn't get into this mess overnight, and it's going to take months for us to turn things around. But let me be equally clear. We will get through this. We will defeat this pandemic. And to a nation waiting for action, let me be the clearest on this point. Help is on the way. Our national strategy is comprehensive. It's based on science, not politics. It's based on truth, not denial. And it's detailed. We will make sure that scientists and public health experts will speak directly to you. That's why you're going to be hearing a lot more from Dr. Fauci again. Not from the president, but from the real, genuine experts and scientists. We're going to make sure they work free from political interference and they make decisions strictly based on science and health care alone. Science and health alone, not what the political consequences are. The Vice President Harris and I and our entire administration will always be honest and transparent with you about both the good news and the bad.
I don't know about you, but I love it. I love the way he's talking. I love the way he is relying on science experts and public health experts, bringing them back in. And I feel like Dr. Anthony Fauci seems re-energized and excited to be on the job again, as opposed to beaten and censored. Here he is from the White House press conference. And I'm telling you, he looked like a young Scott Baio before he went all crazy. Joe Biden's spokesman, Jen Psaki, came in, gave the run of the show, and then brought him right up to the podium to make comments and take questions. And here's 2.5 minutes of what it sounds like in the White House press briefing room when adults are leading the conversation.
The top about the state of the pandemic, the status of vaccines. He'll take some of your questions. I will play the role of the bad cop when it's time for him to go and get to the work of the American people. And then I will do a topper and I'll answer a bunch of your questions as well. So there's lots to come after this. With that, I will turn it over to Dr. Fauci.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to just spend a couple of minutes just summarizing the status of where we are and then maybe addressing some of the things that I know are on people's minds. So first of all, obviously, we are still in a very serious situation. I mean, to have over 400,000 deaths is something that, you know, is unfortunately historic in the very bad sense. When you look at the number of new infections that we have, it's still at a very, very high rate. Hospitalizations are up. There are certain areas of the country, as I think you're all familiar with, which are really stressed from the standpoint of beds, from the standpoint of the stress on the healthcare system. However, when you look more recently at the 7-day average of cases, remember we were going between 300,000 and 400,000 and 200,000 and 300,000. Right now, it looks like it might actually be plateauing in the sense of turning around. Now, there's good news in that, but you have to be careful that we may not be seeing perhaps an artifact of a slowing down following the holidays. So when we see that, we think it's real. But one of the things, and it's interesting, I'm sort of getting a deja vu standing up here because I said something like this almost a little bit less than a year ago when we were talking about the acceleration of cases in the late winter, early spring of 2020 when we were having New York City metropolitan area being the epicenter of what was going on, that there are always lags. So please be aware of that when you have cases and then a couple of weeks later you see it represented in hospitalizations, intensive care, and then a couple of weeks later in deaths. So you have almost a paradoxical curves where you see something plateauing and maybe coming down at the same time as hospitalizations and deaths might actually be going up.
All right, a lot of information right there from Dr. Fauci, and I want to play for you a little bit more from this press conference. He answered a couple of more very important questions and made some comments that I think you'll want to hear.
And just on the broader timeline, you mentioned the fall. We just heard the president say, the brutal truth is that it is going to be several more months. Just to be clear, you're saying by the fall, the majority of Americans you think will be vaccinated?
No, I didn't say that. I said if we get the majority of Americans, 70 to 85% vaccinated by then, we could have a degree of herd immunity that would get us back to normal. The concern I have, and something we're working on, is getting people who have vaccine hesitancy who don't want to get vaccinated, because many people are skeptical about that. So we really need to do a lot of good outreach for that. I mean, I don't know what the best case scenario for me is that we'd get 85% of the people vaccinated by the end of the summer. If we do, then by the time we get to the fall, I think we can approach a degree of normality.
All right, so that's the most important information for public health, I think. But the clip that got the most attention was this one. Question from New York Times, Michael Shear to Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Dr. Fauci, you've joked a couple times today already about the difference that you feel in being kind of the spokesperson for this issue in this administration versus the previous one. Can you talk a little bit about how much different do you feel, less constrained? What is the, you for so many times you stood up behind the podium with Donald Trump standing behind you. That was a different feeling, I'm sure, than it is today. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel kind of released from what you had been doing for the last year?
Yeah, but you said I was joking about it. I was very serious about it. I wasn't joking. No, actually, I mean, obviously, I don't want to be going back, over history, but it was very clear that there were things that were said, be it regarding things like hydroxychloroquine and other things like that, that really was uncomfortable because they were not based on scientific fact. I can tell you, I take no pleasure at all in being in a situation of contradicting the president. So it was really something that you didn't feel that you could actually say something and there wouldn't be any repercussions about it. The idea that you can get up here and talk about what you know, what the evidence, what the science is, and no, that's it. Let the science speak. It is somewhat of a liberating feeling.
I mean, you were basically vanished for a few months there for a while. You feel like you're back now?
I think so.
Well,
okay.
That's Mike Shear. You don't want to take questions from him. Thank you, Dr. Fauci, so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we'll have him back again. So, thank you.
A genuine hearty laughter is something that was normal in almost every other previous administration, common in fact, I think. And I know that rubs some people the wrong way, but those people work there every day with each other, and that's just an honest emotional reaction. I got no problem with that at all. As a matter of fact, it sounded very human, and I'm glad they're not being called the enemy of the people anymore. Also, the guys from the Pod Saves America crew, former Obama writers and Obama administration guys, were on with Stephen Colbert on CBS the other night. And John Lovett, who's a funny guy, I performed with him a few times back at the Aspen Ideas Festival. He's been on the show, the old show. I should get him on the new show. Not that easy. This guy's so funny, such a big deal now. They were on with Colbert last night, and I thought this was great.
Well, let's get to an important subject. Gaga, J-Lo, Garth Brooks. Love it. Do you have a favorite performance today? What leapt out?
Look, obviously, as a gay American, it is important that I choose Gaga. I might...
Sure. Legally
speaking. Amanda Gorman's poem was obviously beautiful, but I would say that... Ted Cruz pretending he didn't suborn a coup 2 weeks ago was extraordinary. Taking pictures.
That was so great. Very, very funny. I had to share that one with you. And now, yesterday and today, I talked about Karl Rove and his stupid comments about Biden's inaugural speech and it being divisive, and he didn't like it when he talked about racism. It's such an important point that I wanted to actually play those comments because I mentioned it yesterday, and I mentioned it today with my guests, and I want to make sure that you actually hear them in their actual context. Here's Karl Rove on Fox News. I'm sorry, I have to do this to you.
The racism thing to me is, I was offended in the speech. I mean, I thought it was a good speech.
And let's just be clear, I think it's a general fair rule. If Karl Rove is offended, then you're saying the right thing.
It wasn't a great speech, but it was a good speech, and it was the right speech for the moment. But there was a point in there where he said we're divided as a country between the people who believe in the American ideal and racism, nativism, and fear. No. We're divided as a country politically over questions of policy and direction and respect.
The crazy thing is, I think he might actually believe that. Yeah, and it's not untrue. We are divided over questions of policy that are super racist.
But we're as united as a country against racism and nativism. There are people in this country who are racist. There are people who are nativists. But the vast majority of Americans stand together on those issues. And that was an attempt to basically say, if you're not for me, you're part of the group that's racist and nativist and fear-mongering, which I didn't think was a good note to strike. But I think that's part of it also, is the payoff to the left of the Democratic Party. If everything is a problem, if every issue we face as a country has ultimately a root in racism, then that's what the left believes, and that's what he's willing to give them a rhetorical gift on.
All right, that is Karl Rove, and I've been talking about that comment amongst others, so I wanted to play it for you. But make no mistake, that guy should not have a platform anywhere because he was one of the architects of the Iraq War. I mean, he helped sell that, of course. He was Bush's brain. He's a scoundrel. And when he or anybody else says the left, just replace it with black people. It's black folks that are talking about racism and systemic racism, and the rest of us need to be listening to them, maybe for the first time. So that's what I hear. I don't know what you hear. I talk about it with Christina Greer, who always tells us what she has to hear, and I love that. And I also love that rhymed, so very clever. And now, here is the president's chief of staff. You want to get to know this guy. His name is Ron Klain. He's super smart, highly respected in public health circles and in politics, in the federal government. He's got a lot of experience. And Ron Klain was on MSNBC, and he explained what the executive order Joe Biden signed would do in terms of the Defense Production Act and how the last administration had screwed everything up so badly. Here's Ron Klain.
Because the previous administration fell so far behind on giving first shots, frankly, it's sad. We don't need as many second shots this month as we should. And so we have more vaccine to get people their first shots this month. And as production ramps up, we'll be able to get people their second shots when they need them in February, March, and so on. We've got a very carefully coordinated program with the vaccine manufacturers to increase production and to stay on track to get everyone the first shots and then the second shots when they need them. And Lawrence, it's more complicated than that, and I should say in a way that should be reassuring to people. One of the orders that the president signed today was to use the Defense Production Act to ramp up the production of a very specific kind of syringe that allows us now to get 6 doses of the vaccine out of a vial instead of 5. And that DPA authority and getting those syringes made actually increases our supply effectively 20% as soon as those syringes are available.
Ron Klain, Joe Biden's chief of staff, sounds like a pretty smart guy to me. All right, one more clip that I want to share with you before I get to the news dump, and this is from CNN. There's a reporter there named Donnie O'Sullivan. I think he might be Irish American, or he's got an Irish accent. Anyway, he's been covering the QAnon movement really well for CNN. And he caught up with a guy who definitely was believing in a lot of the crazy stuff the night before the inauguration. And then he talked to him the next day. And I've got both sides of this for you. This is really great reporting from Donnie Sullivan, and I thought it was fascinating. Here it is. CNN.
The election was stolen. Biden would never become president. Trump would round up the so-called deep state in a reckoning. It was all part of conspiracy theories like QAnon that many Trump supporters bought into.
How are you going to feel when Biden is inaugurated at noon today?
You're going to ask me that. I don't believe... this sounds so crazy, and I recognize how crazy this sounds, but I don't believe Joe Biden is going to be sworn in as president today.
We met Trump supporter William Wheating here in Washington early on the morning of the inauguration. He says he's not a QAnon believer, but he does espouse some of its theories.
I mean, the martial law thing is a sort of baseless conspiracy theory, no?
Well, everybody wants to tag facts as conspiracy theory, so it's just a way of discounting facts.
But if he doesn't declare martial law, would that prove to you that it's, by this time tomorrow, that it was a conspiracy theory?
No, if he doesn't declare martial law, then I will feel like my vote no longer counts in the United States, and that's not a good thing.
Wheating and many other Trump supporters are living in a world of conspiracy theories. As the reality of Joe Biden's presidency set in, some QAnon forums were filled with people coming to the realization that they had been duped.
But what about this guy we just heard from with CNN's Donnie O'Sullivan? Don't worry, he caught up with him after the inauguration.
Joe Biden was just sworn in about 15 minutes ago.
So I met you right here.
Here in the dark last night.
Last night, it was about 3 a.m. You were out here streaming live on YouTube. Do you feel like you've been duped, that you've been tricked, that you've been fooled in some way here?
Actually, no. The way I felt was when I saw, I was waiting up until a minute that he said, "I, Joe Biden." Like when he's I'm watching him walk up, I'm thinking to myself, my life's about to completely change. Because I've been saying I'm either a conspiracy theorist or I'm a prophet, kind of like it's kind of Christian humor. I'm not a prophet, but I was just kind of in shock, and I thought I had to reevaluate everything, the way my life was going to be now, because it's so different than my expectations, and I literally was just kind of walking around like, what now?
I just thought that was great reporting from CNN's Donnie O'Sullivan. And while that might not be emblematic of every or even most QAnon followers, I thought that was super enlightening to hear that reporting, the kind of the before and after that Stephen Hassan says often does break the fever. Stephen Hassan, who is the cult expert, definitely got to get him on next week and see what he thinks about things. And if you or any of your friends don't believe in that the election outcome, if you think it was fraudulent, if you buy some of these QAnon theories, or more likely know somebody who does, I'd love to talk to them. I'd have a thoughtful conversation with them and would love to tape it and maybe play it for folks here on the podcast. I think it'd be really interesting. I am curious. Not as curious as I am and not as important as I am at talking to, I think, the regular experts that I do. But I would have loved to have conversations with those folks because they're not really in my life anymore. They avoid the hell out of me. But I'd love to have a thoughtful conversation, and I would. So let me know. Send them my way. standupwithpete@gmail.com. All right, now it's time for the news dump. This is where I cover all kinds of headlines, as many as I can in 3 or 4 minutes, not COVID-related, not political-related, and therefore probably undercovered. It's time for the news dump. Let's start in Maryland, where a small town there got a $731.1 million Powerball win. ABC News says the latest jackpot-winning Powerball ticket worth $731.1 million was sold in a struggling coal mining town whose biggest previous claim to fame was being the hometown of Baseball Hall of Famer Lefty Grove. Someone bought it at Coney Market, a convenience store in Allegheny County. In the town of Alanaconee, the Maryland Lottery announced on Thursday the store will get a $100,000 bonus for selling the ticket to the 5th largest lottery prize in U.S. history. Also, nobody's going to be talking about Lefty Grove anymore, so that's the only bad thing, because now that I get the lottery winner. And now I'm going to fantasize about what I would do with $731 million. All right, I'm back. All right, there has been a recall on butternut squash products over listeria concerns. Lancaster Foods and Perot Family Farms have both issued voluntary recalls. The cubed, spiralized, pre-cut chunks of butternut squash are being recalled by the two brands over listeria contamination concerns. So if you have any chunks of butternut squash, maybe check where you got them from. Products are sold in retail stores in North Carolina, Virginia, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Massachusetts. No illnesses have been reported, according to the FDA. I mean, who's getting chunked up butternut squash? I'm not a fan of orange foods. Sweet potatoes or squash. I do like pumpkins and carrots, though, so maybe I am. I guess I'm just confused about it all. How about this? A British cruise liner named Saga Cruises is going to require all passengers be fully vaccinated against COVID-19. I wonder when the American cruise lines are going to demand that. That'll be a very interesting requirement. I mean, who's going on cruises? I think a lot of people are probably some whacked out anti-vaxxers. Sorry to making assumptions about you cruisers. A judge has said that Amazon doesn't have to restore the Parler hate speech app. That's what I'm calling it, at least. Court ruled on an injunction, but not the entire case, according to the Associated Press. Oh, and one more thing I got to play for you. Here's Arnold Schwarzenegger getting his vaccination yesterday, and he's sitting in his car, and he revives an old famous line of his, and the whole thing is a little surreal, but pretty hilarious.
Put that needle down.
All done.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, I just got my vaccine, and I will recommend it to anyone and everyone. Come with me if you want to live.
Come with me if you want to live. 73-year-old former Republican governor of California with a classic line from Jingle All the Way, apparently. All right, I have got to get to my first guest, or my mom and dad, who got vaccinated themselves today, and I called them up and asked them about it, and they told me about the process and what they had to go through, and then the conversation became absurd, and we started talking about the lack of diversity of people getting the vaccinations, and then how diversity on their street has changed, and it's pretty funny, and I think you'll enjoy it. People always love when I talk to mom and dad. Then coming up, Dr. Christina Greer and Christian Finnegan. But first, and I open this by messing with them like I'm doing a sound check of sorts that I wasn't. So here we go.
Come on over here, honey, so we can see both of us.
Oh, well,
Okay. All right. Can you guys be quiet while I start?
Yeah, I'll be quiet.
Mom, can you be quiet?
I can't speak for your mother, though.
Mom, please be quiet. Mom.
I haven't said a word.
She's breathing.
I can hear I can hear the breathing. I need complete silence. I need you to hold. I need, before I press record to test it, really, I have to have you hold your breath for 5 seconds.
Come on, Jeff.
I was just, you don't have to do that. I was just making that up.
You know what you do?
Yeah, I pop my P's.
Why do you do that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's even worse. When I say F, sometimes you can hear like things going on in my mouth. It's gross. Everybody has their weaknesses. So here's the deal. I want to find out. Congratulations, both of you, because you've been vaccinated. How does it feel, Mom, to be vaccinated? Shot number 1. You get another one in 21 days or something?
28 days, because we got Moderna. And it feels like a relief. Like we're on the way to being safe.
Dad, how does it feel to get the vaccine finally?
It feels like a relief, like we're on the way to being safe.
So Mom said. So the other question is, at one point, you guys were refreshing. We're going to get into it, but you were refreshing your computers. It was like trying to get Springsteen tickets, right? And you had 5 devices going, and eventually you got one appointment for one of you. And Dad, what you said to me is, I was going to take it. Your mother's computer just didn't work. She doesn't get hers, right? Is that what you said?
Well, yeah, basically. As long as I got it, what the hell? I was just happy.
You said she should have refreshed her computer quicker.
I was not aware of that. We had our computers side by side, and we were both doing all the steps right together, filling out the information. He pressed submit. His went through. I pressed submit. It wouldn't go.
Well, no, Mom, he said, what he really said was, of course, I was going to give Mom mine, and then I made fun of him for his nobility. I was like, well, that's nice of you.
No, your mother doesn't know I was going to do that. So,
well, now she knows. Okay, so let's just go back now, because I think this could be educational to a lot of people, because there was actually a certain, you have to have a kind of perseverance and ability and certain resources to be able to find the information you need to get a shot. When did you start hearing anybody you knew? And what correspondence had you received to tell you where you could get vaccinated, Dad?
Originally, the group of doctors that I go to, which is Kraus, sent me an email and said, we are going to be giving the vaccination. And I said, great, it's under control. And I just kind of closed the email and ignored it. And then I found out there were people were getting appointments and getting the vaccination. So I went back and read the email and realized that it's the next line said, click on this website and you can probably get it from the state. And it was too late by then because the appointments had moved into March for Syracuse in March and April.
But because you missed that one detail in that email, you missed out on the first.
Yeah, basically I missed out on 3 months of vaccinations. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, not 3 months. I mean, it just came out.
And I moved it into April for Syracuse.
Oh, right. You couldn't.
Yeah, that would be February, March, and then April. Yeah, that would be.
So then what you did was you decided to go to look around different parts of the state?
Yes, and we found that if we drove 213 miles to Potsdam on February 4th, we could get it there. So we did make that appointment. Yes.
That was after we made an appointment at SUNY Binghamton for March 12th.
Yeah. Which
so
you had your mother's birthday.
So you had an appointment. You did get an appointment for March 12th in Binghamton, about an hour away. Then you got an hour, a closer in time appointment a month earlier, but you'd have to drive to Potsdam. So how did you then get the vaccination today, which is January 21st?
I was reading the newspaper and it said that there are going to be 900 vaccinations, appointments released on Wednesday. Okay. So, I started looking into it on the website where we had made the other reservation for what was it? Canton or Poughkeepsie, whatever the hell it was. Potsdam. And, come to find out, I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, started checking that like every 15 minutes all day, and nothing was happening. So I said, I'm going to call the county executive's office. And I called there at 5 minutes to 4, and a very nice lady said, sir,
did you drop my name?
No, no.
I'm verified on Twitter.
Well, I probably should have done that.
Whatever.
Because she did say, are you a fan of Pete Dominick, or is that just a coincidence? And I said, huge fan. I've heard of him. And I know of his work. Put it that
way. You should have been like, I split his finger down the middle when he was 4 when we went camping in Maine. Hell yeah, I know the kid.
Yeah. And,
folding chair accident. All right. So so you talking to her? She's nice and she's helpful?
Very sweet. And she said, sir, at 4 o'clock, they're going to release them. And I said, oh, wow. And she said, now here's where I want you to go. And she directed me through the website. Come to find out, if the county is providing it, you don't go on the state website because there's no mix, or, one is what the state's doing one thing, the county's doing another. And I didn't realize that. So, we went on the county, and I finally got through. The website was crazy because you'd answer a question, and then it would say it wasn't like my date of birth, things like that. And then I finally got through. I mean, basically, I got through somehow. And I think it was a matter of timing, because there must have been thousands of people trying to get on to get these 900 spots. That's all I could think of. And I got through, and then we had 2 laptops, 1 iPad, and a phone.
We were freaking out because I didn't get through, and we knew that it showed us that the number of appointments was dwindling. So we were trying to get me through before the end, before there were no appointments. And Dad actually did get me through on his iPad, and we think it's because maybe it was just the right time, and somehow we were able to submit it. So I
must have been super weird during that moment where you're just looking at each other like only one of us is going to live.
Well,
yeah, well,
exactly.
I mean, I felt like, I'm not going to make it. I got to give this to my wife. I have to sacrifice myself, and because I don't want to bring it home. But if I did bring it home and she had vaccinated, it wouldn't hurt her. But that's who I am. That's who I am, Pete.
Right.
So
I wasn't worried that I wasn't going to live.
Yeah. Well,
we've made it this far, and we're still wearing masks and social distancing. Yeah. So I told myself, all right, I can make it a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to have to go to Potsdam.
Right.
That's me.
I was kind of excited about the drive. I haven't been out of Syracuse in so long. I thought that'd be a great thing to go. I couldn't wait for the road trip. In fact, we may just drive up to Potsdam anyway.
Well, now that you're vaccinated, number one. All right. Well, that was it's an interesting process. I think number one, it's like go check in with your county. We're talking about New York State, of course. So I don't know how it might be in your state. Check in with your county as local as you can get, and then have a number of Apple products going at once.
Yeah, the procedure. I mean, I my hat's off to we got a really good mayor.
Procedure?
To get it. I mean, the procedure to get it. We have a really good mayor and county executive here.
Okay.
The mayor is an independent. The county executive is a Republican. Everybody works together just to get stuff done. I mean, that's really all they care about anymore.
Your Republican county legislator believes in science, COVID?
Yes.
Oh yeah, very much so.
They usually do. I think I'm being a jerk. Most state level public health people are not political. They're science based.
I'm talking about the county executive. I mean, these guys are highly qualified, know what they're doing, and our county executive was on every day, just like the governor was, and our county executive made much more sense and sounded more sensible. And he was way more direct.
Right.
I mean, the guy he was just direct. Talk to the people like, listen, just this is what you got to do. And it was great. But anyways, the whole procedure took us 30 minutes from the time we went in the building to the time we came out. And it was.
Where did you go?
We went to the convention center.
On Center.
Downtown.
Was there a lot of people there? Or did you have to wait?
Oh, yeah.
Did you have to wait in a line?
People were there today, yeah.
Did you have to wait in a line near other people?
There was a line with a lot of people, and everybody was socially distancing, and you went up to. There was lots of people to greet you and meet you and tell you you're going up here, and they had these little yellow flags running, and that was where you went next. And then we went to like 3 stations. The third one, you got your vaccination. It was it was really
when they registered you could the people, like he said, had the flags, so they would wave a flag for the next person to come along. And we were in a line, like a maze, going back and forth, kind of like you do at the airport or somewhere. And we got through pretty easily, no problems. And my appointment was at 1:20. His was at 11. But I went with him at 11 because we figured that they would let me get my shot then, too. In fact, that lady that he spoke to said for me to go.
Oh,
and
good. That sounds like a pretty organized thing. Dad told me that one of the people waving the flags was a Trump flag. Is that right, Mom?
Yes, it was. It was a yellow Trump flag. It was like a surrender flag. It was yellow.
Doesn't seem. All right. Well, I appreciate you sharing all that with everybody, and hopefully that helps people. But you gotta persevere. You gotta have the time and the ability to refresh those computers, and to it's not very organized very well. It wouldn't seem.
Well, the fact of the matter is they had 900 spots that went in 1 hour. So I would have to say that the computers got a little jammed on the
right.
other.
So it is. They have a procedure. It's just there's just so much more demand than there is supply.
And the procedure isn't really efficient for that, I think. But I have to tell you about the shot itself.
Oh.
The lady that gave me the shot, I didn't even know she was doing it. I barely felt the prick. And after
I've heard you say that before, Mom.
Nice, Pete. Come on, clean it up. And
sorry.
Then she said something. I told her didn't really hurt. She said something about, women are usually very good about it, but men. And I said, yeah, you're right.
I will say,
if we get a cold, if we both have a cold, he's way sicker than I am.
Yeah,
he whines about it. He hasn't done that in a long time.
Yeah, well,
but he has been whining about his arm being a little sore.
Oh, is that right? What's he been saying?
When I got the needle, Pete, I'm just like your mother. I did not feel the prick either.
Huh.
It was.
Don't go there, Pete.
Well, he did go to CBA.
It's a very, the needle itself is, let's call it the pricker. It's very thin. It's very, and it's all laid out, and they prick you, and you don't even know it.
Then you go and you sit down for 15 minutes.
Yep, we
and
sat
wait
down
to see if you had any kind of reaction.
There we were, sitting down,
there was somebody cleaning all the chairs all the time, and there was somebody checking to make sure you weren't falling out of your chair, passed out, and having some kind of allergic reaction.
Your mother and I were socially distanced the whole time.
Do you know any? Do you know anybody in your age, people you know, that are concerned about getting the vaccine, that are its efficacy, its safety? You do?
Yes.
In our age?
Yep.
I know a lot of younger people that don't want to do it. They got all kinds of concerns. I don't know. We know somebody our age.
Claire told me today she's not sure if she wants to get it or not.
Yeah, what'd you tell her?
You know, when you get to be our age, I mean, nothing's going to happen to you bad from it. It's going to take years. If anything's wrong, it's going to take years and years and years. And we'll be, you know, anybody our age that doesn't do it is a complete idiot.
Okay.
You just have to be a complete idiot not to do it.
So your father said to the cops crossing us across the street.
This isn't going to end well.
He said to one of the cops, "Have you ever seen so many old people at one time?" And the cop said, "No." And I turned around and I said, "Hey, that's not so nice."
Yeah.
Oh, it was Mom that mouthed off to the cop.
Yeah, she did.
And
in the middle of the street, stopped traffic, and she's, "What do you? Wait, hold!" And the cop, and you know, the cop answered honestly because he's a cop. You know, no, you know, he wasn't very funny or diplomatic about it. You ever see so many old people? No.
And there was some man inside. I heard him saying to another person about all the old people there. And we didn't see a single black person.
No black people.
Really?
No. No Asians. No black people. No people. No people. Really, no people of color.
Of different cultures. She had she might have been from India, and I think her son was there with her.
Yeah,
and
she had a dot. She had a dot on her forehead.
Mom was trying to describe it, but not say it and be politically. She wasn't sure. She wasn't sure what it was called, so she just said, I think she was. And then you went right for it. You went right in at it.
I don't think she had the dot.
Okay.
I didn't notice that.
Wow.
She might have been. She could have been Pakistani. She could have been some other culture.
Maybe Bengali from Bangladesh.
Well, could be.
Or she could have been from Bali or like Indochina.
Just to be clear, though, so people listening, you were in a community where a lot of black folks live, but there weren't any there. Yeah. Just so you don't live in a community where there's a lot of diversity, but where you went and got your shot in downtown Syracuse.
There's more black people in our neighborhood than we saw down there.
Right. Which is one.
Three.
You have 3 black people in your neighborhood now?
Yeah. We're very diversified.
You have there's an Asian family as well, right?
That's right.
There's an Asian. Yep. They drive Fords.
And we have another new neighbors that moved into Noah's house. We haven't met them yet. They just moved in yesterday.
Yep.
God, I was so sure you were going to say something bigoted when you said we have an Asian and they drive. I was like, this is going to have to be an edit. But then you said Fords and not poorly. Thank you. Thank you.
The thing is the people that are from Europe in our neighborhood drive American cars.
Oh.
Most of the people on the street have got either Japanese or Korean cars, but they're all the white people.
And Asian people.
No, the white people across the street. They're from England.
Oh.
That's
well, most of the people. There's only 2.
Well, there's more. There's lots of them.
Lots of Europeans?
There's Europe. We got Europeans. We got black people. We got Chinese people. This street has become very, very diversified. And we have lived on the street longer than anybody else here, so we've seen the change.
Yeah,
we've seen the change, Pete. It's nothing like when you lived here. It's very, very diversified now.
That's great. Actually, when we lived there, the people who lived next door to where we live now were actually an Indian couple.
They were an Indian couple.
And then they left because we moved in next door to them, I think.
He had that curry on his hands. I never forgot. The guy's hand for 3 days. I couldn't get rid of it.
All right, I'm going to have to edit that out for sure.
No, you can leave that in there because it's a true story. The guy had so much curry. I mean,
Jesus Christ.
It's curry. I washed my hands 3 times.
They might have moved before we moved down here.
Yeah.
Because
they didn't mow their lawn. I had to mow their lawn for them. They did not mow their lawn.
Well, they were gone.
Well, they could have had their lawn mowed.
After they moved out, they didn't mow their lawn?
No, they did not mow their lawn.
You definitely made it sound like they mowed their lawn. They didn't mow their lawn while they lived there, and you had to
I don't remember them ever mowing their lawn, even while they were here.
You never mowed their lawn while they were home, though.
No, I didn't, because we lived up the street then, remember? We moved down.
Right.
But I don't remember him mowing his lawn. It looked like he was growing a wheat field or something. But they were, I guess that's, it's a cultural thing.
I don't remember
to not mow the lawn?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they come from India, and there's a caste system in India. And if you're a doctor, which they were both doctors,
you have somebody else to do
your housework. You hire other people,
right?
So maybe I was their man. I was their boy.
How long have you been studying the Indian caste system?
I think in high school we talked about it for 3 minutes, but it's not complicated. The caste system in India, and you go down the line, and that's it. And if you're in the lower caste, you don't move up. You're not going to see an Indian prince marrying a commoner like a dishwash lady.
It sounds a lot like America.
No, America is beautiful. Yeah,
it's really easy to move up here.
Yeah, but the neighborhood has changed.
Yeah,
actually, there's old people on the street now.
It's you.
Us, yeah, exactly. We are the old people.
We actually are the oldest, except for the lady up in the house on the curve.
She's 102.
89, I think.
She's almost 100.
She lives alone. Her husband died.
Oh.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
I take her trash out for her.
Oh, that's nice.
I go up there and take her trash out.
She did it once. While she was out there. Once. Nice try.
All right. You guys are hilarious.
She's an old lady. How much trash do you think she has?
Right. That's a fair argument. Mom, how much does...
She has a huge trash can.
And she's super sustainable. She really believes in sustainability. Yeah, she reuses and recycles.
Trash cans in for her?
I took them in once also. Yes.
And I think you only took them in.
You know how there's a gutter across the driveway at the end of the driveway?
I gotta go.
No, you gotta hear this.
Okay.
There's a gutter at the end of the driveway. Mm-hmm. So I drove up the street and I saw her looking at it because she had to step across it. Mm. She couldn't step across the gutter
because she had fallen and broken her wrist.
Oh, she got an excuse for everything.
Jesus.
So
she was very nervous about that.
Ask your mother what I did. Tell him what I did.
You took the garbage cans in.
I got out and said, "What's her name?"
Marie.
You don't know her name. She's lived there for.
He doesn't know any of the neighbors' names. He forgets everything.
I said, "Marie, are you okay?" She said,
"He's got to go, Chuck."
Yeah, she said, "Yeah, I'm okay." And I said, "Oh, good. Then take her. Take your own damn trash can."
Okay. I actually told him to stop and help her.
I said, "Take your own damn trash can."
I don't think you did.
I got all the trouble I get just to walk, for Christ's sake, Marie. And I said her name again, so she'd know who knew who she was.
Okay.
That was fun. Okay. I love you. I'm so happy that you got vaccinated.
Yeah.
So good day. Ava turned 16. You guys got vaccinated. And
we have a new president.
And Donald Trump is gone. It's a good... Yeah. And
I think he's got schemes up his sleeve, though.
Fauci looks good, huh?
Fauci looks like he's a new man. I didn't recognize this guy.
You know what I just noticed? He parts his hair on the other side now.
Is that right? That's a signal. That's a signal to Q.
He parts it on the right side now.
He didn't before?
Yep.
You wouldn't remember if he parked his. You wouldn't remember what side he parted his hair on. You can't even remember anybody's name.
And he's wearing glasses. And he parts his hair on the other side.
Is that what you guys are doing right now? Watching Fauci's press conference?
He's on the screen. We stopped it.
Oh, okay.
Prime time.
Oh.
All right. Good night, Petey.
All right. I see you still have your Christmas tree up. Probably time to take that down. What do you think?
No, he wants it up.
No, I like it.
I took all the others down, but he wants
it's a little one.
Puts the spirit in my heart.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's cheerful.
All right, guys.
We're gonna name that.
I see your bottle of wine over there.
Oh yeah.
That's
not mine. I don't know whose it is. Okay. Love you. Bye.
All right. Bye, son.
All right. There go Mom and Dad. My mom busted me on the bottle of wine that you could see. We were FaceTiming in case you didn't realize that. Anyway, always great to talk with Mom and Dad. I'm so happy they got vaccinated. I hope you or your parents get vaccinated. I know a lot of people are really concerned about that, so maybe that conversation gave you some insight on how to handle it. And a reminder, I want you to sign up for a recurring donation to the greatest nonprofit out there, and that is GiveWell. GiveWell.org/standup. No nonprofit does more work, more research, more investigation on how to make your dollar improve lives and save lives the most. GiveWell.org/standup is a great place for you to sign up right now for a recurring donation. They are an awesome sponsor of this show. I know everybody over there. I don't know everybody over there. I know a couple of people over that work over there that are amazing people who I trust. I've been told by the organization that this community, the stand-up community, has already saved lives with your donations. If you could sign up for a recurring donation using GiveWell.org/standup, that would be huge for the organization. It would be great for me to attract other nonprofits that I can help promote, because we have an awesome group of people that listen to this show that want to do anything that they can to help. If you're out of money, tell everybody else. GiveWell.org/standup, and let's help save more lives and improve more lives by donating to the best nonprofit that does the best work to figure out who those organizations are. Your donation can change someone's life. The wrong donation can accomplish nothing and be wasted. So donate now. GiveWell rates all these organizations and helps you understand where you want to donate. Medicine to prevent malaria, nets to prevent malaria, supplements to prevent vitamin A deficiency. These are such easy things to prevent and to save lives, but they need resources. They need money. Cash incentives for routine childhood vaccines, treatments for deworming, and so much more. Go to GiveWell.org/standup right now and sign up for a recurring donation. And now let me get to my next guest. I'm very excited to have joining me again. She's a political scientist and associate professor at Fordham University. She's the author of a really great book called Black Ethnics. She co-hosts two podcasts, FAQ NYC and What's in It for Us pod with Jason Johnson. She's editor-at-large at OZ. She's also a columnist at Amsterdam News. She is Dr. Christina Greer on Twitter at Dr_CM Greer. Give her a follow. Here is our conversation from Thursday. Okay, here we go. We're starting. It's starting. Here she is. It's been way too long since we spoke, but your time is in such high demand. You're on TV like all the time. I'm so happy to see you, Chrissy. How are you feeling? How are you feeling? Describe your feeling.
I'm a little sleepy today because I was talking from like 8 a.m. to 4 a.m. yesterday into this morning. But, like inauguration days and election days are busy days for people like me, political scientists. But as far as like what transpired yesterday, I just have a lot of emotions. On one hand, of course, I'm excited. It's a new day, new administration. We have a president who reads. We have a president who believes in science, who believes that other people are smarter than he is on certain matters. So he'll defer to them. There's a certain level of compassion and respect that he'll have for the 400,000 dead Americans and their families. Obviously Kamala and representation and blended family and Black womanhood, all that amazing. And then the polar opposite is like, so when are these crazy ass insurrectionists, domestic terrorists going to rear their ugly heads again? Because they didn't go away. They're just silent for a little bit. So I think that's the point of terrorism, right? To sort of keep you a little bit on edge, where you're always kind of looking over your shoulder, like, when will these fools show up in the worst of ways?
I felt like the significance of Biden winning the election meant so many things. It meant that Donald Trump wouldn't be in power anymore, specifically of the military and the Department of Justice, et cetera. But you have most of Republicans saying that he didn't win. Right. I mean, that's the crazy, scary thing, right? You've got damn near half the country is like, no, it was still. So they're like eating these conspiracy theories, and you've got formally intelligent Republicans just feeding this dragon. Feeding the dragon. Let me just go with that metaphor. My point is the dragon is out of breath, out of fire, because he's been silenced. I guess what I'm trying to say is I didn't expect it to be, I think, as significant and as important as it has become, that he has lost his ability to speak in a way, specifically on Twitter. I think it matters so much. I also think the mob insurrection at the Capitol, even given the lives lost, was important to drag along a lot more people, including all these big companies that are pulling funding to politicians, advertisers, and so on, banks from him. He really screwed himself on that, and now he can't say anything. And I feel like we weren't predicting this last scenario to unfold that matters.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's sort of two prongs to this. One is the people who actually did it. They're still in our neighborhoods, in our communities. You know, there were some teachers in there. You know, there were cops in there.
All types of people.
All types of people. It's like
all whites of people.
Over.
All whites.
Right.
I mean, there was a few people, black people.
There's some sprinkling of black folks and Latinos and Asians. Like, you know, there are lots of articles that have been popping up about how Latinos and Asians are, you know, very susceptible to this messaging. But I think, so there's that. We know these people are still walking among us. And like, it's unsettling, right, to know that. But on the second hand, I do agree with you 1,000%. For someone who has used Twitter, dare I say, so effectively, right, to communicate with the masses, those who like him or dislike him, I think January 6th, even though the Republican talking points are, oh, it's the same thing as the Black Lives Matter protests this summer. Absolutely not. Shut all that down. But that's their talking point. But it is interesting to see, this feels like the grift has gone too far, right? Running for the presidency when he didn't expect to become president and was like, ugh, now I got to do this job. That was like, ooh, not the best scenario. But then they're like, hey, let's make the most of this. We can actually just grift our way all the way through these 4 years. You know, Jared and Ivanka, they don't have security clearance or a job title, and they're making $90 million a year. Like all these patents in China. I mean, all types of stuff. And they've been grifting all the way out the door, even when they've been fundraising for, you know, the court cases. Still grift. If you read the fine print, up until $8,000, the money just went into their pockets. So this idea that he no longer can communicate with his public in a very sort of, I'm sure there's an underground web that he can find. But I think it didn't really hit him until he was probably leaving. It's like, hey, dude, it's over. And like, you might actually, for the first time in your life, have to pay the piper. Now, he's a wealthy white man. I don't think he'll go to prison. No. But will his sort of sunset years be a little difficult? Like, he's not going to be like Jimmy Carter planting trees and, you know, building homes and like kicking it with his grandkids.
Yeah, or even W or Clinton, obviously.
Yeah. He's not going to be painting puppies like George W. Bush, who, you know, keep in mind when he left office, I mean, the vast majority of us were just ready to, you know, explode with our rage for this man. And he was able to lay low. I don't think Trump is going to have that luxury because he has committed so many financial misdeeds before and during his tenure as president. Even if he's never prosecuted, just the headache alone of court case after court case after court case. And what top law firm wants to work with him? They don't want that stench. They don't want to lose other clients. We saw this during his impeachment. You know, it's like Rudy Giuliani, who has like alcoholic brain. Like he's just a mush mouth these days, which is sad to see. I was never a huge fan of Rudy Giuliani, but I do find it very sad to see a man who actually at one point, you know, meant something to people. And now it's like, I think he's off.
Well, you're more compassionate than I am. But I do want to ask you about the argument. I know it's exhausting to you. I know you don't want to answer, but I think a lot of listeners would appreciate what your answer would be, because they'll take your answer, they'll take your argument and bring it back to their friends, which is why the mob insurrection at the Capitol is not even remotely close to or should be ever compared to the Black Lives Matter movement, much less even the violence that occurred over the summer, especially.
Right. So we think about what happened over the summer, which is, you know, in the wake of a man being murdered in front of our eyes, right? Like just
George Floyd in Minneapolis.
Yes. 8 minutes and 46 seconds. We witness it. Right. And so the marching continues because obviously Colin Kaepernick kneeling quietly didn't, you know, that was too much for people. And he's disrespecting the flag. How? Stop making things.
Doesn't matter. It's a great point. A peaceful protest. Yeah. They just don't want to see it. Let's not. They don't want to see it. They want to hear about it.
Keep being racist. Like, so, like, just say that. Just say that. Just say, like, let me just keep being racist and stop talking about it. I actually have more respect. So it gets to a boiling point where people are like, I am a human being. Please treat me as such. Like, I can't keep dealing with the murders of men, women, and Black men, women, and children with no punishment, no recourse. Just here it is. You know, we have all the names: Tamir Rice, Mike Brown, Breonna Taylor. Like, it's so exhausting to go through these names because they're not just names. These are like grieving families. These are siblings that are still grieving. These are parents that had to bury a child. We don't even have a word for that in the English language. So the list goes on and on. So yeah, we march. And then we're met with tanks and the National Guard and police, where it's like the minute they see people, they start cracking skulls, right? They start killing folks. We're still reviewing the tape from this summer. You know, my state senator, young black guy, he's 33 years old. He's pepper sprayed. He's wearing a fluorescent T-shirt that says, I'm a state senator. They're like, whatever, N-word, get in line, right? So we're just marching for basic humanity, basic justice. Just don't treat me special. Just treat me so I'm not an animal. Please see me as a human being. That can't seem to happen. And then all of a sudden, you've got men who are armed to the teeth, wearing thousands of dollars of tactical gear. They've flown and taken trains and rented cars, and they've got Airbnbs and hotels. And they get to somehow, if anyone's ever been to DC, you can't get to the Capitol. You cannot.
Can I just stop you for one moment and just because before the Capitol, I thought this is actually where you were going, but before the Capitol riot, we had armed men at state houses, especially in Michigan,
threatening Governor Whitmer.
I mean,
and when we found the manifesto, they said not only were they going to kidnap her and kill her, they were going to kidnap people, members of the Democratic Party, and execute them once a week until they got what they wanted. Now, what do they want? We don't even freaking know, because they want whiteness. That's what they want, period.
Yeah. They want freedom and the Constitution and liberty, whatever that.
Just musings, right? And so, but there's no real punishment for that. 6 guys were found, right? And so then fast forward January 6th, and you have a president who gives a speech. First of all, he's been tweeting about it. Yep. January 6th, come to my rally. Yep. So the fact that the feds were like, we didn't know this was going on. How the hell you don't know what this is going on? I knew this was going on.
Now, my friend who hosts a QAnon podcast was like the expert on it. He hosts a podcast from his, everybody knew it was going on. Yes.
I knew they were going to DC. Everybody knew. So stop with the whole, we were caught unawares.
That was really, it's infuriating.
You know how hard it is to get to the Capitol, and it's just like whiteness at work. And they're able to sort of work with police officers. We saw many a police officer there. Wink, wink, smile, smile, letting them in. And then all of a sudden, they push and they storm. And these police officers were like, well, I didn't want to use my weapon because these guys had families. I was like, oh, that's interesting, because you damn sure shot Jacob Blake in the back 7 times in front of his children. So even how white police officers responded to other people who look like them, it's like white police officers just don't use force on other white people, because it's like, well, that's wrong. I wouldn't want to use cruel and excessive force. It was like, he just pepper sprayed you with Bear pepper spray. He's beating you with an American flagpole. These men beat a police officer to death with an American flagpole.
Can I push back? I want to dare say push back, just because as a white, by the way, Whiteness at Work is going to be the name of my next comedy album. But I do want to say they absolutely cops absolutely kick the shit out of white people all the time. Me and my brother included. So many people over the summer, white people getting the shit kicked out of them. But what I think is important to mention is those are white people in solidarity with the movement that those cops don't like. And I think that that's an important point, just to say it's the movement that I think made them, hold back more than anything else.
Let's be clear. There's nothing worse. For racists who hate black people, what they hate more is a white person in solidarity with black people.
Yeah.
This is why they despise Joe Biden and they can't see him as president.
Yeah,
right?
It's also why I have very few friends in my community, apparently, I've learned.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because anytime when I would be here, when I first moved up here in the suburbs, I'd hear guys say shit all the time, and I'd look around real quick to be like, did everybody else hear? And then I would speak up, and then we would never get invited back, ever. Happened dozens of times.
Yes, you're persona non grata. Listen, they look at Joe Biden, as N-word lover, right? He served Barack Obama dutifully for 8 years. He was his number 2, he was not in charge. And then he has the audacity to choose a black woman. He's the worst, right? So it's like, not only did you take orders from a black man, then when given an opportunity to work with somebody, you choose the black woman. They're like, ugh. This is part of the refusal to recognize Joe Biden as legitimate. 1, because he is in solidarity with people of color. And 2, it's really about Kamala for me. I think a lot of these racists just can't fathom that this Black Indian, child of immigrants, a woman who's chosen not to have kids. She married a Jewish guy. I mean, like the list goes on and on.
Yeah, she's got
why they can't, they see her and their heads explode.
Yeah, they have a spreadsheet up in the barn. Like, first of all,
we hate this woman. And so I think it's one of those.
She didn't even have kids.
Well, I mean, look, we know that Roe v. Wade and the sort of the try and rollback of Roe v. Wade is for the protection of white supremacy, because only white women can make white men. And they created this construct. And hey, like now you're scared because you're running out of white people. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, you talk about Kamala, but what do you make of, the reaction to Joe Biden's inauguration speech, where I think a lot of black folks who I respect really appreciated what he said the night he won, that it was announced that he won when they showed up. And then in his inauguration speech, with just the lip service that he paid mattered, because it was unprecedented. Okay, so making those points in the speech, how much of a negative reaction? I mean, I've seen such a negative reaction from so many people, especially on Fox News, Karl Rove and others, Laura Ingraham, saying that it was divisive when he called out white supremacy and called us racist. He has to stop doing that. I'm offended, is the quote I think I read from Karl Rove.
Well,
what about that?
Isn't that telling? I mean, listen, when people are talking about, horrible racists, it's like, I'm not offended because I know they're not talking about me. The reason why the Karl Roves and the Fox News folks are so up in arms about it is because they know who he's talking about, them and their behavior. I didn't find this speech divisive. I thought it was pretty hopeful. But I do think that he met the moment. I mean, they're literally in the same exact location where a man was beaten to death, and you had swastika flags and Confederate flags 2.5 weeks prior. I mean, no, 2 weeks prior. Like, you can't pretend that it didn't happen. They're literally in the same location. So he had to recognize it. He has to sort of recognize we can't move forward as a country. He wants to have unity. And I get that. And it's a great ideal. And we want to have peace. Nobody wants to live, where you've got people bombing city blocks on Christmas Day. Nobody wants to live like that. But as a nation, we refuse to address the root cause of the problem. I mean, we love just kind of trying to gloss over and it's like, okay, so I brought this up with Jason on our podcast, and I know he's been on here a few times.
Of course, but, Jason Johnson and your podcast, What's in It
for Us? For Us,
which everybody should listen to. I listened to it today before I started talking to you. It's great. Go ahead.
And I haven't seen this movie in forever, but it reminds me of Prince of Tides. You remember that Barbara Streisand, Nick Nolte movie?
Yeah, I know the movie. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can barely remember, but all I remember is like some shit went down really horribly with his family. And like some people broke in, like, abused everybody, and it was horrible. But the dad wasn't home, and like the mom was raped, and like it was crazy. And so basically they just cleaned up the house and like took a shower and like put clothes on and sat at the dinner table. So when dad got home, they just pretended like what went down never went down. And I was like, that's what we love to do as a nation, where it's like, hey, can we actually dissect this horrific thing that happened, where I'm looking at one of the most sacred buildings in this very young country, and I'm looking at a Confederate flag. I'm looking at a swastika. I'm looking at people draw graffiti on, James Clyburn's unmarked office, right? So it's like, so who helped them get to the unmarked offices of these individuals? I'm looking at them put together a makeshift guillotine. I'm listening to them chanting that they want to kill the Speaker of the House. Like, this is frightening as an American, as a Black person, as a woman, all the things. And then folks are just like, yeah, well, January 6th happened. But, I think if you want to really keep talking about it, you're being divisive, and let's just move forward. And like some Black people were marching this summer too. And, a CVS got broken into. I don't give a damn about these buildings that were, spray painted or broken into.
Yep. Not one cop was killed. Were any cops killed?
Do you realize if a cop was killed, they would have strung up as many Black people as they could find? Like, are you kidding me?
And the arrests versus the injuries ratio.
We'd still be talking about it.
Yeah.
And so this is what lets you know that this whole Blue Lives Matter movement is so disingenuous.
Yeah.
Because if it really was a movement and a cop was killed with the damn American flagpole, they should be apoplectic than innocent man who's just doing his job was murdered in the middle of the day, but they don't care. And we know they don't care because their moral compass is off. But actually, like, what they really care about is so unclear, because it's like, you're just really big mad. Like, you had a 400-year head start and you didn't do anything with it. I don't know what to tell you, sir. Like, I don't know what to tell you. That's not my fault.
Yeah.
Like, everything is set up for you. The fact that you can't make it work, don't be mad at me now.
I think that the cleanse, there needs to be a certain cleansing and purge in many different ways within layers of government. And I think that I was really, I was not surprised, but I was shocked still to see that when they decided to do a bit of an investigation into the National Guard who was protecting the Capitol, they found, a couple dozen guys at least who had some questionable connections and posts and on social media and so on. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, that needs to happen to every law enforcement agency at every level in America right now. Who are your guys? What are they saying? Who are they connected to? Where do they hang out on the weekends? And if you're saying racist shit, and if you're hanging out with militias, and if you're a militia member, you got to go. You don't get to
know. I mean, but you remember when Charlottesville happened and everyone's like, that guy's a teacher. That guy's a cop. That guy, like, these are people who, as you said, are in our community. And so it's like, there were a lot of teachers in Charlottesville and storming the Capitol.
Well, listen, if you own a garage or you sell insurance and you're super racist, oh well. But if you're a teacher or a firefighter or a police officer, not oh well, you're fired. You got to go. I'm sorry, you can't be that.
I'm sorry. We know that selling insurance actually is quite racist, where it's much harder for us to get insurance. So actually, I'm going to put them in the category too.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. You know what I'm saying? Like, the government can't decide what happens with anybody's personal views. Right. Hopefully, no one buys insurance from that person. But if you work for the local, state, or federal government, and you're supposed to be protecting physically all people, all bodies, then we find out that you're.
Know this.
But there has to be a deep investigation, I think, and it's so obvious when they do an investigation on these National Guard guys. I'm like, a whole bunch of problems here. We got,
But military personnel have been saying for years, it's like, my roommate reads Mein Kampf every night, right?
Yeah, it's a huge problem in the military. Yeah.
Like, he signed up to go over to Iraq and Afghanistan because he wanted to kill these, quote unquote terrorists. I have a mentee who was in the military, and he was like, this guy, Confederate flag and reading, Nazi propaganda every night. This is my roommate. Right. And it's like, and he, after 9/11, was like, just bloodthirsty. Like, I want to kill people. So now I get to do it and get paid.
Well, when you look at what the government's reaction at every level was after 9/11, we launched $1 trillion wars and built all kinds of new weapons and ways to surveil every mosque in America. That's exactly what we should be doing with all of these militias and white supremacist groups, because it's not just one bad apple. They're meeting on the weekends. You can go listen to them and infiltrate them and resource that.
Stop saying it's apples. It's the orchard, y'all. Like, they keep saying, they're just a few bad apples.
No, but I mean, I'm comparing to the surveillance of like a mosque where there might be one young Muslim kid who watched an Osama bin Laden video and is being radicalized. But so the whole mosque gets watched. The difference is, everybody at this Klan meeting. Every one of them.
But that's always been the case, right? I mean,
but the resources that have been spent, but it was never okay. It was never politically correct. And because we live in a nation run by white supremacists, it was never okay to resource infiltrating and taking down racist white people. And we have to do that now. I'm saying, I'm making a resource argument.
Yeah, but I mean, but white people don't believe in punishing white people in the same ways. And I think my issue
only the ones we know
post January 6th is that the vast majority of white people don't understand the capacity of white people. People of color do. Black people definitely do. We know what white people are capable of. Good white people who stand by and say and do nothing, and evil white people who are itching to do something. And I don't think a lot of white people want to face the reality that people who look like them, people who are from the same country as them, are capable of the atrocities that we know they're capable of. The overt ones, as far as like, I just can kill you in the street, just because I can shoot you in the back 7 times because I know I'm not going to get punished. Or that covert way that you just ruin someone's life and you just make their life a living hell and don't promote them because you can, right? I mean, there are lots of different ways that we've seen the depths of whiteness at work. And I don't think a lot of white people have ever seen it on the same levels that we have. Therefore, when January 6th happens and every black person's like, okay, I mean, are we surprised?
I think it's
absolutely not.
I've never heard.
Is everyone going to go home unscathed? Yes. Like 3 of the people who died basically had nothing to do. They weren't beaten. There's a police officer who died. There's the one woman who I think she was killed. And then the other 3, I think, like heart attack or some sort of. Yeah. They weren't killed.
Some kind of exertion. They climbed a few stairs and had a heart attack. They got pretty excited about the revolution.
So Jazz being there, they combusted. So basically, one person was killed out of like 50,000 people or 40,000 people who showed up. Right? Let that be 40,000 people who stormed the Capitol. Let that be 40,000. Do you realize how fast that National Guard would be there shooting? Like, they would have probably dropped a bomb on the Capitol the same way they did in that neighborhood in Philadelphia with the MOVE movement. They damn sure would have. They were like, you know what? Forget this Capitol. We're just going to bomb it.
I think it's really important what you said about, white people not wanting to realize the darkness within their own family and friends. I think that's super important. I made me think a lot about that and try to understand it. But the only way for me to understand it is I love these people. These are people that I've known my whole life. They may be family members. They may be friends. I love them. I know what's good about them. And so I have an incentive and an investment in not seeing the bad, the evil, the darkness of their bigotry and ignorance and racism. I have an incentive to not see it. And it's easy because I can just look away and I don't want any problems.
Right. And that's a luxury.
I mean, one way to describe it.
I mean, it's just like privilege 101. I would love to have that, but like some of us just can't. And I mean, listen, I think people are really complicated. Like we've seen, we've seen this in the sexual assault conversations, right? Where it's just like, I've known people who were accused of sexual misdeeds and it's hard because it's like, well, they were great to me. This is what I'm thinking to myself. And it's like, wow, I'm hearing some stuff where I'm like, oh my gosh, this person sounds like a monster, but I actually know this person and they're fantastic. They've been mentor and helpful and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, I think that, people have multiple capacities. Like, I think that some of those people probably are, I mean, listen, some of them are married to black women. We don't even get to that. But, I'm sure some of them are great at their jobs. And like, if I came into the store where they work, they might, be nice and, help me find what I need and no problem. Sure. But at the same time, you're throwing on your red hat and punching the glass to get through the Capitol.
It's not how you treat an individual. It's not, it's how you support and who you support in terms of the policies that are drawn that actually affect whole groups, populations, communities. And the most important one to me is that if you say you're not a racist, then you have to support people who will vote to restore the Voting Rights Act. Period. That's it. You have to vote. I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat, but you can't say you're not racist or that you're trying to be more of mine if you're not going to restore everything that Dr. King and John Lewis fought for, which was introduced in the last Congress and will be introduced in this Congress. I think it's called the John Lewis Voting Rights Restoration Act or something like that. That's what you can be nice to Chrissy at the grocery store, but if you don't support that law,
the institutions, the structures. I mean, this is why these Republicans are so disingenuous, because they'll make all these speeches, but when it comes time to vote, they vote against what they just, sort of pontificated.
Right.
So when Mitch McConnell's like, I think that Donald Trump actually, sort of sowed these seeds of insurrection. Like, this is a really bad day for us. My name's Turtle. Blah, blah, blah. But when it comes time to do the right thing, what's he going to do? He's going to vote against whatever he needs to vote against.
Well, let me just ask you before I let you go, what your hopes are for a Biden administration. You wrote a great piece at is it the oldest black newspaper in the country where you have a column, AmsterdamNews.com? I just read that.
One of the oldest, yeah.
It is titled.
Oh, and I should have sent you the one that I wrote for Ozzy, which was, "This was not a peaceful transition of power."
Oh, I didn't see that one. Well, you can talk about that one, but this one is about a Biden administration, kind of what your hopes are for it. And I think that you make this point a couple different ways about being patient and regarding COVID and other things. And I think that's a super important point. It's not a sexy point that will go viral if you said it on MSNBC or anywhere else. But it's the most important point, I think, in terms of how government works and how policy gets passed and where we're at right now and how much work we have to do. You make a really good point about that. Could you articulate what you mean by being patient with this administration?
Yeah, when folks come into power, it's like, I want it now. Undo everything. And it's like, listen, the man's just
redo everything, undo it, yeah.
Right. Build it. Pick up the train. Fix it. Put it back on the track. Send me to my destination 10 minutes ago. So, we know that the far left is famous for this.
Yeah.
So, pragmatic patience. My biggest thing is until we get COVID under control and sort of get PSAs and vaccinations to people and get the economy back on track, because those two things go hand in hand, it's very difficult for the Biden administration to succeed in quite a bit. So I think it's really important to just recognize that we don't even know half of the stuff that Joe Biden has to undo because of 4 years of Donald Trump.
Great point.
He's been such an abject failure. And we'll
never know, because it's like the new people are like, I think they took the files, like the computers that we need are gone, like so much. I mean, that's not literal, but listen, as real gangsters, it's like no paper trail. But then again, sometimes they didn't really do much work. So the things that they did do, it's like, well, we've got to undo them. Luckily, he wasn't really big on legislation because that actually takes time and effort. So it's not like there are many laws on the books. I mean, he was much more interested in judges because that's what he promised. Yeah.
But I think that they're just discovering just how much of a chaotic mess the past 4 years have been. And Joe Biden's trying to recognize, how do we heal this nation literally and figuratively? 400,000 Americans are dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
The number is going to keep going until we get this vaccine into the arms of people who need it. Obviously the transition was difficult because the Trump administration wouldn't recognize that a transition was happening. And so I feel hopeful in the sense that Joe Biden's like, okay, let me talk to some scientists. Let me talk to some people who understand systems management to figure out how we can effectively put this in all 50 states. And we don't have an issue like we have in New York, where we're throwing out the vaccine at the end of the night because we've defrosted it, but we don't have enough people in the queue. We can't keep having that because some people desperately need it and other people, are looking at it in the trash. So I have confidence that Joe Biden actually wants to do a good job. And that's a huge piece. When you have someone who actually takes the job seriously and it's like, I want to show you that I actually can do this. This man has been running since 1987. So I think that I do think that he'll take it seriously.
Yeah.
In a way that Donald Trump was like, I don't respect these people. I think if you're poor, you're stupid. Like, I don't really respect this job. He was always looking at the job like, what's not nailed down so I can take it.
Yeah. Well, let me have you. I just found that piece. You got another minute. OZ.com, Dr. Christina Greer. The piece is titled, "This is not a peaceful transition." And obviously I haven't gotten a chance to read it, but give me a sense of what you wrote about here.
Well, I mean, we keep saying, we have the three former presidents, Clinton, Bush, and Obama, saying like, kumbaya, aren't we so great? We're America. We had yet another peaceful transition. I'm like, listen, the outgoing president, he's not here. He chose not to be because he's petty and, classless. But the fact that you still have damn near half of Congress who refuses to recognize Joe Biden as the rightful winner of the 2020 election. You've got the only representative of the Trump administration is Mike Pence. There is no continuity visually. There's no continuity of what happened in the past and what's happened in the present. We've had to take away the Twitter fingers of the outgoing president because he was, inciting literal riots where they were calling to execute members of the Democratic and Republican parties, right? They were calling hang Pence was one of their chants. So
that was Antifa.
Right, of course. So So this idea that we've had this peaceful transition, like Donald Trump still hasn't even acknowledged Joe Biden realistically, officially, as the rightful winner of the 2020 election, because to do so would take away his grifting effort.
Anybody who writes 2020, the election of 2020 gave created a peaceful transition of power is wrong. History there was not a peaceful transition of power. There was an insurrection on the nation's capital, and people died. It wasn't. And then days later, there were many issues, and the president. It would have been far worse. And as you just said, there wasn't really that traditional transition.
We literally had to get tech companies saying, I'm going to take away your ability to incite a riot with your supporters. Because when you had the rally, you said, OK, I'm out. Yep. And then they went and stormed the Capitol. Like, that's not a peaceful transfer of power, because the election was November 3rd, and he was able to do this on January 6th.
And my fear, finally, is until Donald Trump himself, from his words, makes some kind of robust statement that he, in fact, did lose and Joe Biden did win and reveal it's all been a lie, then nothing will necessarily break that myth, because they only get their information right from him or Q. And he's never going to say those words. I just am not sure where we go from here.
Well, here's the thing. Even if he did say those words, it doesn't matter. You have excavated, bred, fed, and cultivated the dragon. So they don't actually even need Donald Trump to say that anymore. They believe that it was stolen. He's planted that seed. So he can change course, because that's what he does all the time. And they're like, no, it doesn't matter. The dark forces that be are making you say this, or whatever it may be. So it doesn't matter what he says.
Well, you say he changes course all the time. He doesn't ever admit that he was untruthful or apologize.
Defeat. That's like
he will never ever do that. So,
but it'll be interesting to see how post-presidency reality kicks in for him.
Yeah.
Especially depending on the lawsuits in New York State, the lawsuits in New York City, and other states, and he made some really bad financial decisions before he became president, and it's going to be time to pay the piper. It seemed like years and years later, and he was like, oh, I'll be able to restructure and refinance and do all the stuff that he's always been able to do. But these last few sets of loans that he took out were sort of structured differently, and it may be the thing that actually catches up with him. And I'm wondering if this is like one of those like sitcom movies where it's like, hey, Pete, let's go on our last grift. And you're like, no, Chris, let's just we've made enough money. Let's just retire. Let's watch our birds and kick it in the sunset. And I'm like, no, Pete, it's a great deal. Like, there's just one last grift we can do, and then we're really, really set. And I convinced you to do this last grift, and then that's the one we end up in prison.
Well, if Don Cheadle and George Clooney are going to be there, I'm in.
Right. Is that who'll play us in the grift movie?
Well, I mean, Clooney would obviously play me. I don't know. Who would you want to play you?
I don't know. Random people always say I look like Sanaa Lathan, and I don't see it at all.
Oh,
I don't see it, but I get that a lot. I don't know who I'd want to play me. Probably a funny comedian.
Oh, all right.
I would love to be a comedian.
I like it. Marina Franklin.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Hey, Marina, play me in the Chrissy and Pete grift movie.
Do want to say, I forget if I said this last time you were here or not, but I just want to say this at the end. You inspired the Vitamin N movement that I've started with our community, which was you would send me pictures of nature. You started that all. I think you were out somewhere, Martha's Vineyard or something. And then they made me so happy to see these pictures of where you went. And then I started sending them to you. And then I solicited them from anybody listening. And now I start every day's email I send out that the show dropped, because the show is daily, with a picture taken by someone listening from all over the country and even world. And that's all. You started that. You get credit.
I need to get on that mailing list.
Yeah, I will make sure to send it to you. To put you on? That's for anybody who has a paid subscription, but you get a complimentary one, of course.
Well, no, I'll get a paid subscription.
No, you don't need to get paid. No, I should be paying you for your time here.
Nature is the.
And by the way, once I do get enough people subscribing, I will be able to pay regular contributors, so I can pay everybody for their time, especially if they're joining me regularly. Of course, that is what I would love to have with you.
Hey, 2021, ask, believe, receive.
Ask, believe, receive. Subscribe now, and everybody gets the pictures, the vitamin N pictures every morning. It's a great way to start your day.
I love that. I love that.
It's my way to make my daily email, which doesn't have that much great in it. I'll put a little thoughts in it. It's mostly just the show and links, but it's for subscribers. And why would you open any of the daily emails that you get from? Because it's a picture taken this week from somewhere in this country outside, and encourages people to get outside. So
what's one of your, I know you don't want to pick favorites because all of your listeners are amazing. Thank you for listening. What's been one of your favorite pictures?
I like I love all sunsets, any beautiful sunset, but I like pictures that represent.
You're sappy.
Well, yeah, fine. I take it. But I like pictures that represent the season that we are in, especially in places that I'm not familiar with as much, the West especially. And so, but I like anything wintry right now. I love these winter pictures as a mix of a sky. And sometimes people will capture an animal or two in there, a critter. In their photos. I always love when there's a critter. So I can describe you the pictures, the type I like, but there's no specific one that is, but they're all great. What about you? Do you have a favorite type of picture that brings you any kind of, do you like a beach, a mountain, a desert, a sunset?
Yeah, I like something that has a lot of things going on.
Yeah,
like if it's a picture that has clouds and water and seashells and rocks and birds, right? Like I like a holistic scene.
My one rule is that you can't have anything man-made in the photo, and it has to be recent. It has to be taken by you, and it has to be recent and in season. But like somebody sent me a great picture and it had some telephone wires. I was like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I love a good leaf. I love a good leaf. Oh my goodness! And I went to college in Massachusetts, so. I would, the peeper season, when people would come from all over to Massachusetts just to look at our leaves. So I would collect a leaf, glue it to like a brown piece of paper, from like cut out like a brown grocery bag and make a card and send cards to people who didn't live in New England. So, these like big, beautiful leaves that were orange or whatever color. And so when my grandparents passed and we were cleaning out their things, I found one of the cards that has a big old leaf. So it's framed in my house. I'll take a picture of it. Oh, that's great.
Send it to me. The benefits of friendship with you are unlimited. You get cards like that sent to you. I'm getting these nature pictures.
I'm known for cards. I mean, I literally I'm single-handedly keeping the United States Postal Service.
That's great. I got to get back into that.
10 cards a week easily.
Do you really?
Yeah. There's certain things I want to say that,
what kind of person or what kind of event, who gets a card? You get a card. Who gets a card for what?
Anybody.
Give me an example.
Whoever I think about. It's just like, hey, what are you up to? So this week I did Pete's podcast and we talked about leaves. You remember that time we went hiking? Miss you. Love you. Bye.
And you send it right through the old USPS.
Yeah. Everybody's like, so if you ever want to mail something to someone, it's like everyone calls Chrissy because it's like Chrissy's got their address. So if you want to surprise somebody, it's like, oh, Chrissy, Chrissy has their address.
I'm stealing that idea too. I can't do 1008. There's no possible way. But
and usually, I'm the one who's like mails people's grandparents cards. So like, if you got a grandparent who's still alive, like I'm your girl. So I'm like, oh yeah, I sent your grandmother some flowers from us. It's like, what? It's like you have a grandmother.
Best friend in the world. Yeah, oh, it's so great. Oh, that's so great.
Being a friend is like the best thing ever. It's second only to being an aunt.
I love it. I love it. I love all of it. I love talking to you, and I appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much.
As always, Pete Dominick. I'll send you that picture of that leaf.
Oh, I can't wait. Can I share it publicly?
Yeah.
All right.
There's a card on the inside, but I'd have to take it out the frame. But it's to my grandparents from like 1999.
Awesome. I'll share it with everybody for today's episode if you send it to me. Thank you so much. All right, there goes Christina Greer. Chrissy Greer, always love when I get the opportunity to ask her questions. Such a smart, awesome, passionate human being and so generous and kind. Her friendship has meant a lot to me. I've learned so much from her during this crazy time in our lives. So great. All right, let me move on now to my final guest of today's show. He joins me every Friday, and he is one of your all-time favorites. We always love when Christian Finnegan joins us. He's on Twitter at Christ Finnegan, where he's awesome. You should buy all his stand-up specials. And today, like every Friday, he does not disappoint. Here now, my conversation with Christian Finnegan. I'm very happy whenever I am talking to you, but I'm super happy today because we woke up and Donald Trump wasn't president for the first day ever. And I'm asking everybody to react with their emotions and feelings around that. How's that affecting you?
It's one of those things where the more I think about it, the happier it makes me, which is usually the opposite with me. It's like, if something good happens, it's like, well, I better not dwell on this because I'll quickly start to see how awful it is.
Conditioned wrong.
Yeah. It's not that I think that everything's going to be roses and trumpets blaring and, it's not all going to be wonderful. It's going to get shitty in its own way very quickly. But just the fact that it happened. That it happened and how long, even though we knew, even when Biden was up 10 points in the polls and all these things, even once he won in November, it's still, there was just that part of you that felt like we're not going to make it to him being president. Like it's just not, something's going to get in the way. And it was so bizarre just, listening to the news earlier and hearing them refer to, like I was listening to Jen Psaki's press conference. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's Psaki or Saki.
I don't think it's Psaki because if it was, you'd have to change it.
Yeah, probably. But just hearing people say like, will the president be announcing? And then to realize, oh, they mean Biden.
And just the way that I watched her presser from last night, handled it, you're like, what's happening? This woman seems non-combative and smart and respectful to the people she's talking to, and she seems serious. And Jen Psaki, was there during the Obama administration, and then people probably got to know her even more on cable news hits that she's done during the Trump administration. But she's wildly qualified, maybe even overqualified for that job. I mean, it's the best. But she's great, and it just feels weird. Yeah. It feels like you're watching what you're not watching. I don't know how to describe it. It's so good. Just the boringness of it all is so important and good.
Yeah, Allie, I think, hold on. Sorry, my mic went out there for a second. Ali Velshi had tweeted something yesterday about how next week Biden's going to be meeting with Justin Trudeau or something like that. And I literally didn't get to the end of the sentence before I lost interest. And it was like, oh my God, what a lovely feeling this is. What a lovely feeling to read something and just not have any emotion about it. Like, oh yeah, that's some bullshit I don't need to care about.
We were assaulted with chaos every day, and you'd try to get away from it, and you'd be pulled back in, and you'd be upset in so many different ways by it. And it's weird to have your body and your mind try to unravel, and it's like getting away from a drug or a bad relationship as probably a better example.
I mean, sometimes I've heard people say that the relationship analogies can be a little facile and like not something we don't want to treat these politicians as if we're in a relationship with them. They're tools to provide a service. It's probably better in the long run if we think of them like that instead of like, he's a good boyfriend, she's a bad girlfriend, etc. But I think we all are going to have to force ourselves or remind ourselves to not focus on that which no longer requires our focus. A lot of the Trump stuff, over the last 4 years, you could say, oh, well, I'm not going to pay attention. But, it was sort of irresponsible to not pay attention because he was president, and these things have an effect, if not on your life directly, on the lives of people you either love or maybe people you don't know but care about anyway, say children at the border, et cetera, and so forth. But now that he's not president, I really think it's going to be important. And obviously it'll be a little different over the next month or so with the Senate trial. But I really feel like it's eventually he's going to get his Facebook page back, it looks like.
Oh,
and
really?
That's what I read today. That maybe like a month from now or something like that. But eventually he's going to get some social media access again. Twitter will eventually give him his account back, unfortunately.
I don't think so. I don't want to. Why are you saying these words?
I just think they will. I think they will. It's just my prediction. But it'd be terrible. Eventually he is going to try to drag us back to him attention wise. And I really think it's important and incumbent on all of us to remind ourselves there are important things that need to happen. Even if it's just, if it's not the pandemic, if it's not the economy, it's your own life, it's your own mental health, it's your own family. and that this fucker just doesn't need to be part of your daily consumption diet anymore.
When he said the day he left, I'll be back in some form, what did you hear?
I heard a guy basically trying to keep so many options open that it was basically a meaningless statement. That he doesn't want to say anything that makes his conviction in the Senate more likely. He doesn't want to say anything overtly provocative, but at the same time, he wants to put it out there that maybe I'll be back and maybe I'll be running again. And I mean, I think he wants to run again. I have the feeling that, and I'm basing this on nothing, but that after 2 or 3 months of not being president, he might not want to go through this again. That first of all, I think he's going to be swimming in legal issues. And I think he might be reminded of like, oh, I can just stay at Mar-a-Lago and basically be the emperor of Mar-a-Lago 24 hours a day and have people kissing my ass constantly. Yeah. Why would I put myself through that again? But, I'm sure there'll be talk of it. I'm sure he'll put it out there. And, if it ends up being something you have to pay attention to, so be it. But I would really encourage us to sort of abandon the page 6 aspects of his presidency.
I'll follow your lead on things like that and other things. And I hope you're right about that. How did you take in Inauguration Day? Did you watch the festivities? What were your thoughts, feelings, emotions around it? And I thought, by the way, I think Amanda Gorman's a little overrated. I think enough with all the talk about this young lady. Also,
this girl getting on her high horse.
Well, I was watching
poetry. This is America, lady.
Yeah, what's with the poetry? The laureate, whatever that means. I tweeted during her speech, her account. I was like, here she is. Give her a follow. And when I tweeted, she had 50,000 followers. At the end of the day, almost 1 million. So you're welcome.
I did. Oh, yeah. She got the Dominick bump. I mean,
white savior.
I think it was interesting because obviously it was a little surreal seeing the sort of relatively empty bandstand.
Right. The lack of energy and of human energy was something that had to be noted.
But it also made it feel more portentous in a way. It made it feel, it made it, because it felt so different. And because literally 2 weeks ago, we saw idiots climbing up those same walls.
Literally climbing them.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though there was a staircase readily available.
I never haven't heard anybody make that point.
I saw someone else make that point. I can't take full credit for it. I saw someone else making that point. But yes, it's completely idiotic.
So when you saw them climbing the walls,
I'm just saying that the bareness of the ceremony made it feel a little eerie at times, but it also lended it a gravitas, which usually, honestly, when it's packed to the gills with, rich people and, the pomp and circumstance feels just so empty and frivolous. Whereas this time you kind of wanted a little bit of pomp and circumstance. You wanted some sort of like, all right, someone's in control of this. Like, you wanted a feeling of national unity. And I thought that Amanda Morgan, is that her name? Gorman, rather.
Yep.
I thought her poem was beautiful and really struck the perfect tone. And yeah, I mean, in general, I felt like it felt heavy in a good way. It felt like it had weight and importance to it. And that's really all I can ask for. My wife was breaking into tears periodically through the course of the day. And
I was too, periodically throughout the day. I was being hit with emotions I was not ready for.
Mm-hmm.
I should have been
incapable of feeling, but other people I know experience something very poignant.
I'm sorry to laugh at that, but it is funny that you're incapable of feeling because it's not me. That's why it's funny. Now you tweeted something else that made me laugh. It was deeply offensive. You tweeted, I need 10 more stories about devastated Q believers. Stat. I too enjoy them, but we shouldn't be enjoying them. Why are we not, specifically you, more compassionate to these people who think that Joe Biden eats and has sex with babies?
Well, the way I would say it is First of all, there's a continuum. You know, there's a sliding scale of how gleeful I feel. You know, somebody's mom who just got swept into Facebook 16 hours a day and has lost family over this.
Yeah.
You know, I feel a certain degree of sympathy for that, in the same way that I feel sympathy for anybody who falls for a pyramid scheme or, you know, a shell game, or just anyone who gets conned. Essentially, I have a certain amount of sympathy for. But you very rarely see a large con where the conned people feel self-righteous about it. You know what I mean? Where it's like, not only did you fall for a con man, you felt righteously indignant in the process. And so I understand that eventually we're going to have to welcome these people back. There's one guy who responded to that tweet basically with like, God has a plan, and basically essentially saying it's still going to happen. It's just, you know, no, you can't deny God. Basically, yes, everything I believed has been proven wrong, but God, so therefore,
right,
I'm right.
Right. Yeah. Right. There's no peeling that guy away.
No, but I just responded to him. I just said, and this was a little bit of concern trolling, but I mean it. I said, best of luck on your road back. You know, because a lot of these people, they're going to have to re-engage, whether they want to or not. They can't. You know, staying in this sort of Facebook bubble might have felt very reassuring for the past, 2 years since QAnon really started rising in prominence. But it's gonna, you know, I'm sure there'll be some other batshit theory that they all coalesce around in the future. But for a lot of these people, it's going to be time to get off the ride, and they're going to have to re-engage. I'm not saying that they're all of a sudden going to see their error of their ways and say, oh, I can't believe I ever believed that. But they're going to have to put down the laptop. And, you know, I understand that that's going to be rocky, but I feel like for a few days, it's okay to laugh at them. For a limited period of time.
I do too. I can't help but not. I kind of always have, and I've always made fun of them in every possible way. But I say them, and I say always. I mean, there's always been people who are batshit crazy that believe just about anything. You know, I'm telling my kids to tell their friends to learn the phrase, "What's your source?" It's really interesting to see this generation of young people, and including my daughters, who have no really right to be believing this shit because they can come ask their parents. Say, hey, did you hear this happen? I go, no, that did not happen. What's your source? And it's the same for adults. It's just you'll believe anything. And that needs to be ridiculed. You need to be more responsible with what you hear and what you spread in an era where we are all able to spread things.
And I think we may have mentioned this a few weeks ago, but there is a generation of people, and I don't mean to beat up on quote unquote boomers or the elder, the greatest generation or whatever. Yeah. But I mean, there's a certain generation of people who, if something is in print, there's just this assumption that there must be legitimacy behind it because it looks just like the New York Times. Mm-hmm. It looks just like Time Magazine, on the screen. This website is just as slick looking as, the Epoch Times is just as slick looking as the Washington Post. So clearly they're both equal.
Right.
And hopefully younger people are a little more savvy than that. I will also say that, I had a point and now it's gone. No, you're gonna have to edit this out too. Please don't let people know how stupid I am by being like, I have a point and then completely coming up empty.
There's no way. Listeners of this show bring you up randomly all the time.
Yeah, like, God, I can't believe you fucking keep having that dude on your show.
No, it's more insulting. They're like, I wonder what Christian Finnegan would think about this. I'm like, what about me? Do you think, would you like to know what I think about it? They're like, yeah, can you ask Christian? And then we'll see what you say. Bastards. Well, I mean, what do you think about the idea that we're already seeing a lot of people react to Joe Biden's speech yesterday and say that it was divisive? Oh, did you remember what you were going to say?
I did remember.
Go ahead. Go back to it then.
Just very quickly. Yeah. I would just say that it's not always a feeling of delight when you're right about a situation like this. I always liken it to you're in a car with your family. You're on a road trip or whatever, pre-GPS days. Mm-hmm. And you are sure that you're supposed to be going on 17 South. And yet the person driving the car is driving on 17 North. And you're arguing about it. And you're like, this is the wrong way. I promise you. But the person driving the car is like, fuck you. No, it's not. I know where I'm going. And so you keep going in the wrong direction. And then finally, you pass a sign that establishes that you are, in fact, driving 17 North when you're supposed to be doing 17 South. Now, are you ecstatic when that happens? No, because you've gone in the wrong direction. You have to backtrack. But there is a certain degree of pleasure and confirmation that I'm not crazy and that you were fucking wrong. And you have to admit that now. So, I understand it's not the kind of thing you want to be you don't want to be bringing that up forever. Like, remember the time you went the wrong way on the highway? But, for this brief moment, when we have now passed the road sign that shows you were wrong, I was right, I don't feel too much guilt about sort of making that line pretty clear.
I love that metaphor or example. And I used to do a joke about losing an argument or in the moment with my wife when we're moving a piece of furniture out the doorway. And I'm saying, turn it this way. No, it won't go that way. Yes, just turn it. Just try it my way. And then you try it my way and you jam it against the door frame and the leg comes off. And then I just switch subjects as quickly as I can so I don't have to be called out. But it's like in that moment, you know that you are wrong. Your example is better. And Stephen Hassan, who's the cult expert who I've interviewed several times, says exactly a lot of what you've been talking about here is some people will peel away. And when people realize that everything that they've believed, that if it was predicted that on January 17th and January 6th and January 20th, whatever it is, the Savior is going to come and things are going to change, and it doesn't happen, a certain percentage of people do peel away. Not all of them.
Yes.
But many do when they learn that the thing they'd been told is wrong. And I think that's super important. I like the way that you explained it even better about
I
being
had
lost.
that exact experience with my wife last week. We had to build this little enclosure to put wood in, and I was 100% certain that it was not going to fit through the kitchen door. And then my wife was like, turn it this way. And I didn't believe her. And then she was right. And my strategy or, my philosophy in situations, just do it quickly. Just apologize fully and immediately. You were right. I was wrong.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
You sound weak to me.
No, but see, to me, it's not only is it the right thing to do, but you're also denying the other person 10 minutes of feeling better than. Do you know what I mean? You're like, just cut
all
your
right,
losses
fair enough.
right there.
Yes.
Just jettison it. You were right. I was wrong. Moving on.
That's great. That's great advice. You just changed me as a human, as a man, as a husband.
Get it done.
Wow.
The longer you wait, the more of a mountain it is to climb to apologize.
You're absolutely
the minute you know
right.
You're wrong. Just say so and move on.
What do you think of the idea that a lot of people are already saying that Joe Biden's speech was divisive because he's talking about people being racist and white supremacists? I heard Karl Rove say that, and some of the other. I'm not going to say who. Yeah, Rand Paul. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to watch people just completely tell on themselves.
Yeah. Yes.
We all need to unite against racists. Hey, I'm offended. What do you think that says about you and the people who you represent? We just got through this. You can't deny or you can't take to task the quote unquote Capitol riot and say that these people were wrong and then get mad at Joe Biden for saying that they were wrong. Now, obviously they would lump other things in. They wouldn't say that's completely about racism. And what I always say about stuff like that is all of these things, the QAnon or Oath Keepers or, the Capitol riots in general or whatever, the Tea Party, they might not be fashioned out of racism, literally, but racism is the helium that makes the balloon rise. Do you know what I mean? That it's like during the Tea Party, they stitched together all these bullshit theories about, policies and problems about state rights and high taxation and, and having to pay for somebody else's McMansion, and all the things that the Tea Party pretended to care about. And they sort of stitched a big quilt out of that. But that wouldn't have gone anywhere without the helium of racism to make that balloon rise. And I feel like it's the same thing with these people, the Rand Pauls, all the people that condemned the Capitol riots. They just won't connect that final dot. They just refuse. It's like what they did was wrong. Racism is wrong, but don't call the people who did that racists or else I'm offended.
Such a great way of explaining it. I love talking to you. I really do. And that's why everybody loves listening to your explanations, because you crystallize them in a way that makes it easier to understand and think about with your metaphors and with your examples. I'll let you go.
It's very nice of you
I
to
know
say.
you don't have a lot of time today, so I really appreciate it. I know you've got to get back to work.
I do. I have things to do, Pete. People need things from me.
I know you got to get that wood thing,
regardless of what
that wood store. You got to get that wood storage thing set up.
Got to.
Is that for fires? Are you gonna have some fires?
Yeah, we have a little wood burning fireplace.
That's great. I didn't know that. Oh, you're rich. It's one of my definitions of wealth.
It was built 100
I know,
years
but that's
ago.
a definition of wealth of like in my mind. In my mind, now we got to stop defining wealth by money. Like to have a fire, I want that. There's certain things I want, but I have my electric one now that a listener sent to me. You know, the fake fireplace.
Oh yeah, that's nice. Yeah. No, this whole place is like 600 square feet, and so like it ain't lap of luxury.
What more do you need, sir? Well, thank you very much for joining me as always, pal.
Thanks, brother. Talk to you later.
There goes Christian Finnegan. Always great way to end the week, having a conversation with him. He makes me laugh. He makes me think. He helps crystallize certain ideas in my mind, and that is why I love him. Thank you, of course, to Christina Greer. Follow her on Twitter. Listen to her other podcasts, and thanks to Mom and Dad who joined me, and mostly thanks to you. If you are a paid subscriber, that is everything. If you aren't, sign up now, please. Just go to patreon.com/Pete Dominick or the paid subscription link in the show notes wherever you're listening to the podcast. And you can join us every Thursday night at 8 p.m. for our hang and support independent media because it's free, but it ain't cheap. Hope you have a great weekend. I'm thinking about taking it easy next week. I'm still going to post every day, but probably just an interview and not all the news and commentary around it. We'll see how it goes, but that's the plan right now. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for listening. I'm looking forward to relaxing, taking a little time off if I can figure out how to do it. This Saturday night, I'll be joining a whole bunch of other comedians trying to break a record and raise money for a really important charity. It's a world record attempt for a comedy show, a live streaming comedy show for, I think they're trying to do 85 hours straight. Yeah, that's the deal. Check out Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling. Just throw those words in. All kinds of comedians doing it. I think I'm 10:45 Eastern on Saturday night. So maybe if you're not doing anything, check that out and support a really good cause. And that's it. Out of time. I'll talk to you next week on Discord platform. You're not alone because you can always check in there. I love you. Goodbye. Take it away, Johnny.
When the tyrants taunt you and the sirens tease you, better stand up. Stand up. Let the brave meet the challenge. Let the weak flee. Oh, you better stand up. Stand up. When you're tired of begging, saying pretty please, that's the time you gotta finally get up off of your knees. When you can't see the forest for the burning trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels been leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. You got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up. Stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. ground and then stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up. We got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up. You got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well, and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up, stand up, got to stand up. Ooh, come on, just stand up. Everybody got to stand up in the darkest hour. Stand up, people got the power. Stand up. Come on, 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 stand up.
All right, show enders, I have no special wisdom for you today, no special clips for you today. I just have a thank you. Thank you for listening to the podcast and always waiting till the end here in hopes that some good nugget will be here. I've only been doing this for like a week, but I don't know. I love to hear from you guys, the show enders, a special club within a club that nobody knows about. You guys are the best.